This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Mother's Day is almost here, and you can get her the most beautiful time-tested gift around. A watch she can wear every day from Movement. Whether your mom is into classic dress watches, rare and refined ceramics, or tried-and-true bestsellers, Movement has something she'll love. And right now, everything at Movement is up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale. A watch is a gift that celebrates all the time you spent with Mom. And a Movement watch is even more than that. Movement uses industry-leading materials for their fresh, modern watch designs, from technically complex ceramics to vintage-inspired style, all for an incredible value your wrist and wallet will both love. And with one-size-fits-all convenience and fast free shipping and returns, it's a stress-free shopping experience. Save big on the best Mother's Day gift ever with Movement. Get up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale at mvmt.com. Again, that's up to 50% off at mvmt.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Xcast. The truth is in here. I'm Tony Black, back for round 2 of our Ghouli coverage, season 11's 5th episode, written and directed by James Wong. And once again, to talk today with me about William and Ghouli itself is Andrew Brooker.
Gosh, it's been so long, mate.
I did say that like it was like a million years since we recorded last, wasn't it? You know, and it's Andrew Brooker, of all people.
Where's he been?
I know. All this time.
Nipped for a wee. That's literally all I had time to do.
Well, yeah, we're back, continuing our discussion of Ghouli, an episode which I think we were a tad indifferent on to some extent, but I think we both have enjoyed elements of it, and I think the big thing with this really is to think about the main centerpiece character, which is of course William, aka Jackson van der Kamp, who obviously, as we discussed in the previous episode when we were talking about Scully and Mulder and Scully, is the centre point of Ghouli. You know, it starts off as a monster-ish episode and then becomes something else entirely. So, I mean, what did you think of the character itself? Because we don't really see him until probably about halfway through, really. You know, before then he's in a hoodie and he's projecting all these weird shadowy visions onto Scully, and then he's dead, seemingly dead, and then we don't really get him characterised, I suppose, until the end, do we? Really?
No, it's am I right in thinking that it's Van der Kamp, isn't it?
Van der Kamp, yeah.
Yeah, we saw the parents in season 9.
Yeah, at the end of William, the episode William.
Yeah.
The Van der Kamps get baby William, but Scully doesn't know who they were, so the only person apparently who knew the name was Jeffrey Spender, but even that's a little bit how did Spender know? But there you go. We might get more info on that later, but yeah, so they're the same, not the same actor and actress, I don't think, but they're the same characters.
The character itself, though, I thought it was a good introduction, like the way he, like you say, a shadowy figure in a hood, you know, kind of ghost-like. Kind of cool. I like that kind of intro because at the time it's still kind of leading into Monster of the Week thing, and then he's dead. Literally, the first time you actually see him, he's dead. Scully's moment that we discussed in the previous episode. But your actual proper introduction to William is when he wakes up, and you suddenly realise that actually, wow, this kid has powers.
Yeah.
This kid is doing things. You know, this isn't just dreaming. This isn't just, you know, a bit of sleep paralysis and too much cheese before bed. This is this kid is doing stuff. And at that point you go, this is pretty cool. He's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's like when we saw him in My Struggle 3, it looked like he was having a seizure when you see him in very quick flashes, and obviously we find out here he's on medication for
seizures
and psychotic drugs. So he's been going through a lot of stuff. What I think surprised me was that I expected him to be much more of a character without any sense of control. I thought he was going to be somebody who was completely, unable to control what he's doing and projecting these visions into Scully and not really knowing why. And he doesn't really know. He does sort of say it in a throwaway sense, doesn't he, about to Brianna, his girlfriend, that I think it's my birth mother who I'm connecting with. So there's a possibility that he doesn't quite know who Scully is at first, but then that's sort of negated by the fact that he spent half the episode pretending to be a Chinese man stalking her. So I'm like, well, I don't
why
quite.
Why were you following them then?
Why were you following them? So I don't know if he's. I don't think he's telling the truth about that to the girlfriend. So he was much more in control of his powers than I thought he would be, and that took me by surprise.
I think that's going to come back to bite him in the arse a bit as well. Because at that point he's basically omnipotent.
Yeah.
If you can make, he managed to. Although let's also remember that he hid under a desk from two guys, but then turned himself into someone else when he ran away from the people that were actually trying to talk to him. He could have done the runaway thing first. Let's not delve into the logic of an X-Files episode because we could be here all night. But I do think the creators have kind of made a rod for their own back here, because he will be basically, his character, his power will make him able to get out of any situation he's in, by manipulating the minds of the people around him.
I know you're not a massive Trekkie, but it's a bit of a cue from Star Trek kind of thing in that, this like you say, this omnipotent being who can do anything, who can sort of, manipulate time and space and all this. I know William isn't quite that level, but if he can project a vision of anyone onto anyone, then that's a pretty big power to have.
It's an interesting. I'll tell you what, and I won't go off on too big a tangent, but what it reminds me of, I was part of a conversation a couple of years ago about why you'll never get a really good Superman game on consoles. You will never get a really good Superman video game because Superman is basically invincible. You cannot make a game where you can't have a fail state for a character who is invincible. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It can't, and you're going to end up with the same problem here. You have a character who can manipulate anybody, can project monsters and make people scared and shoot other people, that he wants out of the way. You've basically created this god that will never ever be caught. I don't know how they work their way out of that. I don't think they can write their way out of it at all.
Well, it could be fairly consistent with some of the the mythos stuff, because way back when all this stuff's floating around about William as a baby, it's this idea that he's described at one point by Krychek as more human than human, that they were afraid of him because he would either lead the aliens to being like, all-conquering, galaxy, universe-conquering, whatever, or he would destroy them because he was too powerful. And what he's displaying is certainly nothing we've ever seen an alien do in the X-Files. We've never seen the alien bounty hunter be able to project something on someone's mind. We have seen telepathy, obviously, but we've seen a lot of mind stuff with Mulder and all that kind of thing with the alien ships and all that stuff. But we've never seen this level of power, if he starts busting out like the telekinetic whatever and being able to move things with his mind, he's basically going to be Professor X, isn't he? Or Magneto.
Well, and this is kind of the problem, right? If they made his character so like you were expecting, so he's not in control, then I think you have an arc that can resolve itself. But when you do have a character that will end up being Professor X and Magneto and all of that put together, I think from a writing standpoint, I think they've built themselves into a problem. Although, as I say that, they could make him Phoenix, I suppose.
well,
make him too powerful so he can't control himself again.
You joke about that, but that could well be their way out, actually, because I keep thinking, how on earth in one... Because presumably he's only going to pop up now in My Struggle 3, Right, My Struggle 4, which we're assuming is the finale title. I don't know if he's going to pop up before then. He might. We never know. But I'm assuming he's only going to be back mainly for that. Because the rumour is, spoilers, check out now if you don't want to know. But do you want to know, actually?
Yeah, crack on, you're fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the rumour is, and I think Chris Carter has essentially said it on Reddit, is that My Struggle 4 is William's struggle. So it's going to be like Smoking Man was My Struggle 3, Mulder Scully. It's going to be William's perspective, the final episode. So I think it's going to be a lot more about him, and we're going to get a lot more of his story and into who he is. But it could well be that he ends up becoming too powerful and he ends up, destroying himself, because I don't quite know how they're going to do all this in one episode, especially when you've got the Smoking Man after him, and tracking him down, and obviously we know now he's telling Skinner that he's the father.
Yeah.
And obviously this ties into this new thing called Project Crossroads, which I think is really going to piss off 1 million people who are interested in the mythology. Yes. Because this is a massive thing that's just come out of nowhere. This is like, and it felt, I don't know about you, it felt really weird to have Skinner explaining a big chunk of the mythology to Mulder.
Yeah.
If I was Mulder, I'd be going, well, hang on a minute, how do you know this much? Like, you never used to know this much. Most of the time you would be in the dark and you'd be telling me to back off or whatever, but you wouldn't be able to tell me what was going on after the Roswell crash. Like, I'd be pressed him a bit more. I'd be like, who's giving you this detail, Yeah. So that didn't quite sit right with me. I don't think that's a Skinner role. That felt more like a Mr. X or a Deep Throat kind of conversation.
It did. And like you say, at the same time, it's out of nowhere. It's crowbarred into a mythology that's got enough dodgy project names already.
Well, it's also rewriting the whole thing as well, because it suggests that in the 70s, it took them 20-odd years to get to the point where in the 70s, they started developing this hybrid program, which they did, but that was for completely different reasons. That was because of the colonization and all this stuff, and this makes it sound like this Matsumoto guy, who assumedly William is pretending to be with the Chinese fella. I don't know, I just felt like I can live with it, because Chris Carter has already reinvented the mythology for a new, paradigm, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the reasons why the mythology's changed, but I'm less okay with details. I'm less okay with throwing in a Project Crossroads, which was going on for 50 years, and then suddenly was cancelled 15 years ago with this guy we've never heard of before. I'm like, hang on, right? Don't give me this now. So I think it could have been a bit more seamlessly worked in, the whole thing with assumedly what's happened to create William.
Yeah.
It was, like you said, I think it was a bit crowbarred.
I think the other problem they have now with William, obviously they've introduced is the wrong word, but they've made him a main part of this episode. They've given him a role, and they've now given him a proper role for the rest of the season. What happens if this is the last season?
Well, it probably will be.
But this is what I mean. Like, it's pretty heavily thought that we're done after this. Anderson's done. If Anderson's done, Carter's pretty much done.
Yeah. I
think the only way this ends, and I really hope it doesn't end like this, because it basically sounds like I'm going to spoil the last episode. I'm pretty sure the only way this ends is with William losing control and dying, probably by his own hand. In
a way, I only see. It feels like that William has to have some kind of. He can't just go off with his parents. You can't have happily ever after. No,
happily ever after will suck.
Yeah.
That's what you can say.
It will. Well, it will. Everyone wants that in a way for them, but William has never really been. I've always felt like William was never really supposed to exist. That's been the whole thing. A lot of people hate me for saying this, but William was never quite supposed to exist. He wasn't a natural sort of creation between Mulder and Scully. He was a baby who was created, now it seems, by this Project Crossroads, this alien human hybrid program or whatever. He was created for a very specific, and we still don't know quite what purpose. So he was never really Mulder and Scully's little baby boy to go off into the sunset with. It's too much has happened. There's too much. There's that really nice moment where Scully's looking through all the photos and she's saying, "There's a whole life here," and that's it. That's the whole thing. He's not really their kid. You know, in that he is biologically, and she's got this really emotional tether to him, and she wants to know that she wants to forgiveness, you know, for feeling like she let him down. But they can't do the 2.4 children thing because it's not what it's supposed to be. And so there is only one way I can see it going, and that is maybe he dies to save the world.
I think that's the only satisfactory conclusion.
Yeah, I don't know, and that he makes his peace with the two of them, and Scully in particular, and maybe he just dies taking out the smoking man, properly taking out the smoking man now. And I think the only way to take out the smoking man is to literally atomize the guy, put him in a vat of whatever, and or just something blow him up with a phaser from Star Trek or something, right? Just to show him literally atomize that there is no way he can come back. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with William in the next time we see him, because he's kind of set himself up really as being a bit of a sly, you know, two-timing douchebag.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. He was having two girls on the side at the same time. Bit of a naughty chap.
Then tried to have them kill each other.
I still don't quite know what that was about either.
This is my problem. This is what I mentioned briefly in the last episode. We had this amazing monster setup, and when you actually get to it, it was completely pointless.
Well,
pointless.
Was the whole thing? I can only assume the whole thing was that he got them to that point because he wanted to get Scully that clue that would link Mulder and her to come to him. You know, if that X-File was there, he sends her the vision. You see the ship in the snow globe, and that's the clue that gets them on his trail. But then why doesn't he just say hello to them? You know, if he wants them there, why does he then piss off? Why does he then have this nebulous sort of moment at the end where they go, "Oh my God, that was William"? You know, why doesn't he just go, "You're right, Mum. You're right, Dad"? You know, why? I don't quite get that logic. I'm sure there is that logic, but it escaped me a touch. And you're right about Ghouli. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed, especially after, you know, that teaser. You see this fucking Lovecraftian Cthulhu kind of.
Oh, it was awesome
thing.
As well. I sat, when I first watched it, I said out loud, I was in the house on my own. I was like, a proper monster.
Yeah.
Shit, yeah, son, this is going to be awesome. I was like, oh no, okay.
Yeah.
You just snatched that from me. This is Home Again all over again.
Well, yeah, I was disappointed. I mean, they've done all that viral marketing stuff with Ghouli.net as well, which, you know, that website that Mulder and Scully look at is real. You know, it's been done. All that stuff you can go and read. You know, and there's a lot of effort been put into creating all those, you know, fan fiction, as Scully describes it, posts that William had written in order to create this legend of Ghouli, you know, in people's minds, in the minds of these local kids. And it just felt like to me that was a whole other story, you know, that you could have done. You could have had this urban legend about this thing called Ghouli, and that all these kids are looking into it, and it's making them, you know, fight each other and stuff like that. And then you've got this other beast from the nether realm that's blah. And I'm like, oh man, I want that episode. You know, all this William stuff is fine, but I want that.
I still want that episode.
Yeah.
Like I said previously, I was like, it just, everything about it was reminiscent of like an old creepypasta. And I was like,
yeah.
Well, this, you know, it's kind of with the new Slender Man movie coming out and you know, Girls on Trial. It's kind of in the public eye again, so people know. I was like, well, that's a perfect setup for an X-Files episode.
You
know, why wouldn't you do an episode where a creepypasta comes to life? And no, you ruined it.
It was just, yeah, a bit. I mean, that's my biggest disappointment, really. I wanted Ghouli, and really what I got was William 2. You know, if
they could have done the decent William episode without doing that at the beginning of it.
I think as well it would have been more palatable to swallow had we had a truly good monster episode since the revival came back, and we haven't. You know, we haven't had. The closest we got was part of Home Again, but that, like you said, that got lost really.
Yeah.
We haven't had that truly great monster episode. And, you know, we might still get it. I mean, I'm hopeful. We don't know much about the last couple of episodes, and there's a few rumours that there's going to be some dark, weird stuff in that. So, you know, we might get one. Possibly even from James Wong as well. But, you know, I don't know. We've got to wait and see. But I think in that sense, while there was a lot of good stuff in Ghouli, and while it definitely teased up the Williams stuff and everything, there was a few missed opportunities, I would say.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is going to be another one of those episodes that when you watch it once the season's done, the same way we talk about the X-Files from like season 3 now, because we've all watched it, 35 times and we know it inside and out. So when you sit down to do one of these podcasts and you start talking about it, you know the episode intimately. And I think once we get to that point, it might sit better. I ain't going to guarantee it, but I think it might. I think it will sit better with a lot of people as part of the bigger picture instead of an episode on its own. But,
it might. It might work better knowing what happens with William ultimately as well.
But this is, but that's the thinking of someone that's on an X-Files podcast that has been doing this now with you for a couple of years. This is not the thinking of general public that's watching these episodes week in, week out. All they're going to go is, oh, okay, another episode. All right.
Yeah.
They haven't got time or the inclination probably to watch it a couple of times in short succession to get out of it what I got out of it.
No.
They're just watching that and going, I don't think I'll bother next week. And then we wonder why the ratings are tanking.
Well, yeah, I know. I think there's a lot of emotional investment you need in this episode that you won't have if you're just a casual viewer,
I think that's been the case for a lot of this season, though. A lot of this season feels like it's aimed at hardcore fans, not newcomers.
It's not like season 10 was aimed at newcomers. It was like here you go, here's a little snapshot of what it is. This is like, yeah, okay, this is just for you. This is for the fans. Which, do you know what? Fine. I'm happy with that because I am one of them. But I think, at the same time, whether Ghouli will stand on its own as a genuinely good semi-myth arc story, time will tell. It's too soon. Time will tell.
Yep.
Time will tell with that. So yeah, that's William and Ghouli. We're going to be back for one more look at this episode. We're going to talk about James Wong and a little bit more of his stuff around this episode and to top off our coverage of Ghouli. So join us next time. Thanks for listening this time. And until then, trust no one.
Mother's Day is almost here, and you can get her the most beautiful time-tested gift around. A watch she can wear every day from Movement. Whether your mom is into classic dress watches, rare and refined ceramics, or tried-and-true bestsellers, Movement has something she'll love. And right now, everything at Movement is up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale. A watch is a gift that celebrates all the time you spent with mom. And a Movement watch is even more than that. Movement uses industry-leading materials for their fresh modern watch designs, from technically complex ceramics to vintage-inspired style. All for an incredible value your wrist and wallet will both love. And with one-size-fits-all convenience and fast free shipping and returns, it's a stress-free shopping experience. Save big on the best Mother's Day gift ever with Movement. Get up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale at mvmt.com. Again, that's up to 50% off at mvmt.com.